Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Tuesday, June 6, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Tuesday in Major League Baseball. First up is the Detroit Tigers taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. We're going to see Taijuan Walker going for Philadelphia. No official starter for the Tigers right now. You know, Taijuan Walker has not been pitching well this season overall, 5.65 ERA, but he has been a lot better at home this season. A 3.6 ERA, 1-0 record in 20 innings of work at home, 20 strikeouts, and a low opponent's batting average of 191 compared to a 6.75 ERA away from home, a 295 opponent's batting average, 7 home runs allowed in 37 innings, only 25 strikeouts. So I'm willing to back Walker here at home, facing a Tigers team that has not hit righties very well this season, nor in the last 30 days. And Detroit, you know, their pitching staff and their bullpen was used pretty heavily in that last series against the White Sox. I don't think it's in the best shape here against the Phillies team that against the Nationals this weekend was crushing the baseball. I like the Phillies in this one. Give me the Philadelphia Phillies on the run line. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Miami Marlins. Zack Greinke and Jesus Luzardo are your starters. You know, normally we're looking to fade Zack Greinke when he's pitching away from Kauffman Stadium. He's been much better at home this season and last year with the Royals. But, you know, we saw in his last start, he had a really tough spot to be in. He goes on the road against the St. Louis Cardinals, one of the tougher labs to face as a right-handed pitcher in the last 30 days. I mean, they're top 5 in both team OPS and isolated power against those right-handed pitchers in the last month with a pretty high walk rate to go with it. Greinke goes 5 innings, 6 strikeouts, no earned runs, only 2 base hits, only 1 walk. And, you know, eventual 2-1 loss for the Royals, but still, it was Greinke's best start of the season by far. He was missing bats, he was limiting sharp contact, and now you're going against Miami, who overall this season has not been the best against right-handed pitchers, especially in the power department. I think Greinke could put together a decent outing here, give the Royals 5 decent innings, while Luzardo has really struggled as of late. We saw his last start 5 earned runs and a homer against the San Diego Padres. A couple of starts back against the Giants on May 21st, 6 earned runs allowed and 2 homers. So he's still missing bats, he's still earning strikeouts, but giving up a lot of sharp contact, a lot of base hits. And I do think Kansas City, whose numbers against lefties overall this year haven't been too bad, they make a lot of sharp contact. I think that their matchup actually pretty beneficial for them against the lefty here in Luzardo. I'm going to take a shot here with Kansas City plus the 1.5 runs on the road. I think at the least they keep this game close within a run, maybe even win the game outright. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Louis Varland and Zach Eflin are your starters in this one. I'm going to isolate this game to the first 5 innings. We know the Rays, their bullpen has not been the best in the last month. They've certainly regressed quite a bit, and they played a pretty grueling schedule or a grueling series against the Red Sox, which included a doubleheader and a makeup game on Monday. So the bullpen pitching staff in general not really in the best of shape going into this game. You know, Zach Eflin's been very good at Tropicana Field this season. I think he can give the Rays probably 6-7. They're going to need him to give him 6-7 good innings because, you know, he is a very efficient pitcher, so he usually does pitch deep into ball games. And like I said, very good numbers at Tropicana Field, 37 innings, a 2.19 ERA, a 6-0 record with a 207 opponent's batting average. Louis Varland on the other side has been solid this year for Minnesota, 3.51 ERA. Decent strikeout numbers, but he does give up a good amount of sharp contact. We saw in 3 of his last 4 games, giving up at least 1 home run. 2 of those last 4, 2 home runs or more. And the Rays, one of the tougher labs to face as a righty this season. That's the case in the last month as well. I do think that Varland struggles early on. I think the Rays have the lead by the end of the first 5 innings. Don't want to sweat out that bullpen, so give me the Tampa Bay Rays laying the half a run in the first 5 at Tropicana Field. Next up, we see the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the Washington Nationals. Tommy Henry and Jake Irvin are your starters. Tommy Henry pitched very well in his last game, probably his best start at the major league level, maybe in his first 2 seasons, certainly this season. 7 innings, 7 strikeouts against Colorado, no earned runs in a 6-0 Arizona win. However, that was a really good matchup for Henry. It was against the Rockies on the road. We know they have struggled offensively away from Coors Field this year, and it was against the Rockies team that just struggles in general against left-handed pitchers. They've got a high strikeout rate, a low team OPS, isolated power, WRC plus WOBA, you name it. The Rockies have struggled against lefties. So now Henry's on the road, where we know he's not pitched too well this season. At home, at Chase Field, a 2.49 ERA in 25 innings. On the road, 5.74 ERA in 15 2/3, only 12 strikeouts, 4 home runs to go with it. So I do think against the Nationals team that does a really good job at limiting strikeouts and has good OPS numbers overall this year against lefties, I do expect Henry to struggle in this game, but I also don't really trust Jake Irvin on the other side, who's got a 5.67 ERA, even worse numbers at Nationals Park this year, and has regressed quite a bit since his strong first couple of games at the major league level. You look at the last 4 games that Irvin's been on the mound for Washington, 8-2, 8-6, 8-6, and 9-3 losses for the Nationals because he has struggled and he's got one of the worst bullpens in baseball to back him up. So Arizona, very good lineup. They limit strikeouts. They're very good against right-handed pitchers. I don't like Irvin's chances. Give me the over here in Washington, Arizona. Next up, it's the Chicago White Sox taking on the New York Yankees. Lucas Giolito and Clark Schmidt are your starters. I don't trust the White Sox bats here against Clark Schmidt, who's really improved his game since a really bad start to the season. You know, Clark Schmidt's last start, 5 2/3 innings against the Mariners, 7 strikeouts, no earned runs, only 3 base hits. The Yankees bats didn't back him up in that game, but Lucas Giolito hasn't been very good on the road this year at 5.68 ERA away from guaranteed rate field. He does give up a lot of sharp contact. His control's been off here and there. We saw him walk 7 batters in a game back on May 25th. That was his last road start against the Tigers. And the Yankees, you know, they may be without Aaron Judge, who's battling an injury, but this is still a good enough lineup. Now you get Stanton back in the lineup. It's certainly going to make a difference. They've hit right-handed pitchers very well in the last 30 days. I like their chances here with Giolito on the other side. So give me the New York Yankees on the money line against Giolito. Next up, it's the Oakland Athletics taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. James Caprillion and Mitch Keller are your starters. I got to go with the Pirates here on the run line. It's just too much of a pitching mismatch, in my opinion. And James Caprillion, 0-6 with an 8.12 ERA, but an even worse number, a 10.32 ERA in his 11 1/3 road innings this season. You know, decent strikeout numbers. He's starting to miss some more bats, but still giving up a lot of base runners, a lot of walks. And the Pirates are starting to improve their numbers against righties as of late. Last couple of weeks, doing pretty well against right-handed pitchers. So, you know, Mitch Keller on the other side, he's been really good at PNC Park, 2.18 ERA. His last start was, you know, a little bit strange for him. He gave up 10 base hits and 4 earned runs, but no homers, only 1 walk and 8 strikeouts in a 9-4 Pirates win. So I'm not really too worried about those 10 base hits. I do think he pitches well in this game, good enough against one of the weaker lineups in baseball. I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Pirates laying the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Hunter Brown and Kevin Gausman are your starters. Pretty good pitching matchup in this one. You know, Kevin Gausman really struggled against the Astros in the first start he faced them this year back on April 17th. But that was a while ago, you know, over a month ago, and it was on the road. And we know Gausman's been much better at Rogers Center this year with a sub-2 ERA in 36 2/3 innings, 49 strikeouts, a very low opponent's batting average, only 3 home runs allowed in those 36 innings. And we saw in his last start, he was excellent against the Milwaukee Brewers. 6 2/3 innings, 11 strikeouts, no earned runs in that game, and a 3-1 win for the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have hit right-handed pitchers very well as of late. They're facing a righty here in Hunter Brown, who, you know, is coming off not his best outing against the Minnesota Twins. 5 earned runs and only 4 2/3 innings of work, 2 walks to go with it. Brown's got really good strikeout stuff, but the Blue Jays don't really strike out too much against right-handed pitchers. In the last 30 days, the third lowest strikeout rate, 19.8% against those righties. I think the Blue Jays get to Brown here enough for Gausman to take care of the rest. I'm going to take the Toronto Blue Jays on the money line at Rogers Center. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Cleveland Guardians. James Paxton and Shane Bieber on the mound in this one. To me, the value lies with the Red Sox in this game. As Shane Bieber, you know, we mentioned he was on regression watch, and we saw him struggle in his last game against the Baltimore Orioles. 4 innings of work, 8 base hits, 7 earned runs, a homer, 2 walks in that game. And, you know, his control's been a little bit off as of late. His strikeout numbers overall this season have been way down, only 53 Ks in 75 innings. And the Red Sox, although in the last 30 days have not been the best against righties, overall this season they've been a very solid lineup against right-handed pitchers. I think they can get to Bieber in this game. James Paxton being a lefty on the other side, the Guardians have not had the best of numbers against lefties this season and as of late. You know, Paxton's last start against the Reds, 5 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, a really good showing from him in that game. Even though that the Red Sox went on to lose that one 5-4, it certainly was not because of James Paxton. So, you know, I think Paxton pitches well here. I think the Red Sox can get to Shane Bieber. I like the price we're getting with Boston on the other side. So give me the Red Sox on the money line on the road. Next up, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Cincinnati Reds with Tony Gonsolin and Luke Weaver on the mound in this one. You know, the Dodgers have been so good at Dodger Stadium this year with a 20-10 record overall, But on the road this year, just around league average 15-15 record, while the Reds just a little bit under 500 at home this season, 14-17. Tony Gonsolin's got a 1.77 ERA, but a 5.19 xFIP and a 4.84 expected ERA. I do expect some regression in his game. His strikeout numbers really weren't great to begin with, but they're even down from last year, and now 6.31 in his first 35 2/3 innings of work. His walks are up, his home runs are up as well, and his BABIP is at 155, which we know is very unsustainable. You look on the other side, Luke Weaver, sure he's got that ERA above 5 at 5.36, but a 4.22 xFIP. He's got pretty decent strikeout stuff. He doesn't really walk a lot of guys, and the Dodgers overall in the the weekend series against the Yankees after a really good Friday night struggled mightily offensively on Saturday and Sunday. Freddie Freeman really struggled in that series as well, and I don't really love the price that we're seeing here with Los Angeles on the road. I don't think Gonsolin is as good as that 1.77 ERA, so just based on value, I'm going to take a shot here with the Cincinnati Reds, which we know have been a lot more competitive as of late, last couple of weeks, than they were at the beginning of the season. Give me the 1.5 runs here with Cincinnati at Great American Ballpark. Next up, we see the New York Mets taking on the Atlanta Braves. Carlos Carrasco and Bryce Elder on the mound, and this one, Bryce Elder, kind of similar to the 2022 Cal Quantrill in the fact that he's defied the odds, and although the StatCast numbers and the advanced numbers and expected numbers aren't really in his favor, he continues to go out and pitch pretty well for the Atlanta Braves. He still has a perfect 3-0 record with a 1.92 ERA in 65 2/3 innings, which is a pretty healthy sample size. Only 4 home runs allowed this season. He's pitched well. We saw him pitch well against the Athletics. In his last game, 7 1/3 innings, only 1 run. You could say, oh, that was the Athletics, but the game before that, it was against the Los Angeles Dodgers. 6 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts. So he's pitched well this year for Atlanta, and the New York Mets offense has just been so inconsistent. We saw some flashes from last year's team in those series against the Rays and the Cleveland Guardians at Citi Field, where the Mets were earning some comeback victories, but in that Toronto Blue Jays series, just didn't look like they had a lot of fight in them in that series offensively. And Carlos Carrasco got an ERA right now at 5.74. He's pitched better as of late, but his strikeout numbers still not where they need to be. Only 19 Ks in 31 1/3 innings. The Braves really held their own in that Arizona series against a red-hot Diamondbacks team. They won 2 of those 3 games, a comeback victory in the final game. I like their chances in this one. Give me the Atlanta Braves on the money line at Truist Park. Next up, we see the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. Kyle Gibson and Freddie Peralta are your starters. Freddie Peralta, I had my concerns in his game going into last start against the Blue Jays, and he struggled mightily in the first inning of that one, giving up 2 home runs and 3 runs in the first inning. But then he settled in really nicely for Milwaukee, and he gave them 6 decent, quality innings. 6 innings, 3 runs is a quality start. And, I thought he pitched really well down the stretch of that outing against a very good Blue Jays team. Now you return back home where you've been much better this year. 6.04 ERA on the road, but a 3.38 ERA at home this season, 35 strikeouts and 32 innings. I think Peralta's going to actually pitch pretty well in this game. And Gibson, 3.89 ERA, but his strikeout numbers are really concerning. Only 47 Ks in 71 2/3 innings this season. His last start against the Guardians wasn't the best. 5 2/3 innings, 7 base hits, and 3 earned runs, only 3 strikeouts. I know the Orioles bats backed him up in that game, but this has been a pretty tough road trip for Baltimore going from San Francisco to Milwaukee. So I'm going to take the Milwaukee Brewers here. I think we're getting some value with Freddie Peralta. I'm going to take the Brewers on the money line. Next up, we see the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Texas Rangers. We're going to see Matthew Liberatore and Dane Dunning on the mound in this one. And to me, based on value, I think St. Louis is the valuable side in this game. As the Rangers are off to a great start this year. Offensively, they've been a very, very good team. The pitching rotation has really stepped it up since Jacob deGrom's injury. Guys like Nathan Eovaldi and Dane Dunning are improving their game. But I do expect some regression in their game going forward, and I just think that they're plainly overvalued in spots like these. I mean, Dane Dunning, a 2.06 ERA, but his career low strikeout rate at 6.00, a low BABIP at 265 is pretty unsustainable, a 4.38 xFIP and a 4.08 expected ERA do suggest some regression in his game, and you're facing a very, very tough Cardinals lineup that in the last 30 days is number 3 in baseball in team OPS and number 2 in isolated power. So I do think Dunning could struggle in this game, and I certainly wouldn't want to be laying that kind of price on the money line with the Rangers and their bad bullpen as well. So I do think the pitching staff for Texas struggles in this game. And Matthew Liberatore, I think, is better than his current 4.91 ERA. I still think the Rangers offense will be able to get to him for a few runs. But I think St. Louis competes in this one as well. And we're getting a really good price at plus money. And we saw the New York Yankees last year go off to an amazing start to the year in the win-loss record. One of the best starts to a season for Yankee history. But we also saw them finish with under 100 wins. It's very, very tough to be red hot from the beginning to the end of an MLB season. And I do think we certainly sometimes see teams get overvalued. I think the Rangers right now are one of those teams. So give me the St. Louis Cardinals on the money line. Next up, we see the San Francisco Giants taking on the Colorado Rockies. We're going to see Dinelson Lamet going for Colorado. No official starter for San Francisco on the other side. Dinelson Lamet's got a 13.17 ERA so far this year, but it's a very small sample size, only 13 2/3 innings. When you look at expected numbers, much better 5.05 xFIP and a 3.91 expected ERA. I watched his last start against the Arizona Diamondbacks. We were on the D-backs laying the 1.5 runs as a rundown best bet in that game, and they won that game 6-0. But even though Lamet gave up 5 earned runs in the first 3 innings of that start, I actually thought it wasn't as bad of an outing as the number may say, as the final game log may say. He had 4 strikeouts in 3 innings against a team that doesn't strike out much. And out of those 7 base hits that he allowed in that game, only one of them was an extra base hit. It was a lot of singles that just found their way through the infield. And I think Lamet is a lot better than what we saw from that game. He's got really good strikeout stuff, obviously, and he's facing a Giants team that's been so offensively in the last month. Now, we don't know who San Francisco's going with officially on the mound, but we could pretty much expect they're going to be utilizing their bullpen quite a bit this series. And this San Francisco Giants bullpen has been actually really solid as of late. Last year wasn't a very good bullpen, but in the last 30 days, they have the lowest SIERA in baseball. Their ERA has been also really solid, so the expected numbers and just the plain black and white ERA have been really good for San Francisco in their bullpen. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game and potentially a low-scoring series. I'm going to take the under here in San Francisco, Colorado. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the Los Angeles Angels. Hayden Wesneski and Tyler Anderson are your starters. I think we're going to see a high-scoring game in this one. I like the over. Hayden Wesneski, a 4.81 ERA, facing an Angels team is top 10 in baseball in both team OPS and isolated power against righties in the last 30 days. Tyler Anderson, a lefty. The Cubs have hit lefties very well, top 15 in isolated power, top 10 in team OPS against those southpaws in the last month. And Anderson, he has struggled this year, a 5.47 ERA, expected ERA at 5.00, but an xFIP is 6.06. I don't like his chances in this game either. 2 bullpens that have been so-so in the last month. Give me the over here in Chicago, Los Angeles. And the final game for Tuesday's card in Major League Baseball, we see Logan Gilbert and Joe Musgrove on the mound for this Padres-Mariners matchup. I do think Musgrove's going to pitch well in this game as he's in good form going into the start. Probably his 2 best starts of the season thus far. Maybe the game against the Dodgers back on May 7th could be in the conversation. But against the Yankees and Marlins, a combined 12 1/3 innings of 1 earned run baseball. 9 strikeouts. I'd like to see those strikeout numbers rise a little bit, but still good outings from Musgrove. And he's facing a Mariners team. It's been pretty inconsistent offensively in the last month, you could say, against right-handed pitchers. Isolated power-wise, this team is ranked 26th in the league against righties, 23rd in team OPS, and a high strikeout rate of 25.4% is the 4th highest in baseball in the last 30 days. The Padres against righties have also not been much better. I mean, they're ranked 28th in team OPS. Isolated power, they're 27th. So 2 teams struggling against right-handed pitchers, 2 solid starters on the mound here. Give me the under in San Diego, Seattle. And that's it. Those are the games for Tuesday in the MLB. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.